Hello and welcome to this video where I'll be showing you how you can use the new meshes and freeform deformation features in Spine. As you can see, I've loaded up this Ninja Rabbit character, and if you've seen our recent Kickstarter video, you'll already be familiar with this character. So I'm just gonna select the head here, which is currently an image, and I'm gonna convert that to a mesh. And the way I do that is I go down here to the bottom of the tree and I tick the mesh option. Now, as you can see, I have some vertices here that I can actually move around, and I can just left click and drag them, and this deforms the image. But I want a little more control, so I'm gonna click edit mesh, and I'm gonna create a boundary hull around the image. And there's two ways I can do that. I can either use create and modify the existing geometry, or I can use set points, which will create an entirely new mesh from scratch. And I'm just going to get started here by left clicking and then left clicking again. I'm going to do this all the way around the head here. And just going to do this quickly. Like so. When I get to the first point here, I click it and it finishes the mesh. As you can see now, I have some edges here going around the image, and the blue edges means that it's the boundary, and the internal white ones here are edges that I created automatically. So I'm just going to show you a different way you can do it. So I'm going to first undo. As you can see, I end up with the 4 original vertices. I can redo it, what I just did before, so instead of undoing, I can click reset point to, which sets me back to my original state here. So I'm gonna click create this time instead, and then left click drag, and this is now creating some edges inside of the mesh. I still have the original vertices, and just gonna do pretty much what I did before, and there I end up with a new mesh. And the reason why I well, actually there's multiple reasons to use the create instead of set points. And create using create instead of set points makes sure that your image does not move from its the position you've placed it at in setup mode. But it's not as fast as using set points. So depending on if you have the character already created, it's better to use create instead of using set points. But if you are just starting out a new character, it's better to use set points because it's definitely faster. So I'm gonna get rid of these vertices that I don't need, and I just selected delete down here. And when I hover over these vertices, you can see it turns red, and I know which part will be deleted. Gonna get rid of these, and now that I delete this one, you can see that there's an edge created here because of the structure I have of my edges here. So I'm going to get rid of that, and now I'm ready to actually deform it a bit. So now when I drag these vertices around, you can see that it is deforming. But if you notice here, when I move this vertex, sorry, it doesn't deform very pretty. If I move over here, it's much better. The reason for that is the way the internal edges are created. So I'm gonna go back to edit mesh mode, and you can see there is an edge going here, and so when I move this vertex here, this will be the only part that will be manipulated. So I want to create some internal edges to have better control of how the triangulation, which is what is happening here, is actually how it's actually doing it. For my animation, I want to animate the mask here, make him raise his eyebrow a bit. So I'm just gonna create some edges around the opening of his mask. Couple more down below here, like so. Actually, no reason for me to create these internal edges that I'm doing right here, but I prefer to have a little more control of it. So just gonna create this edge over here. So now you can see these edges, these internal edges will well, they look far better for deformation. I'm going to show you that in a bit. So with that done, I am gonna exit edit mesh mode, and now when I move this vertex here, you can see it deforms much better than before. And I can also move these vertices around to deform or make him raise his eyebrow. Now let's say I've already done a deform here. I can go into edit mesh, and it gets rid of the deform here. It goes back to the original state, but I can turn on deformed, and now I can tweak my mesh, not like that, with modify of course. I can tweak my mesh, and you can see it's actually moving the edge around without actually having the image below following it. And this is useful if you need to match up part of your mesh with a different part of your character. You can see here that all the other images of my character is also visible. But I'm just gonna turn off deformed here, exit it mesh mode, and undo this deformation that I did here. And now I'm gonna get ready to do some animation with this. Now before I go in and start animating this head here, I just want to show that we also have this new freeze button down here for the meshes. And what this does is it sets the mesh's current rotation as 0 and scale as 1. So now if I go here and I rotate the head a bit and maybe scale it and then hit freeze, you can see right now I have a rotation of 20.26 and a scale of on X on 1.17. So if I hit freeze, it will reset this. And this can be useful if you've manipulated your original mesh or image with the mesh so much that you'll have to go in and rotate your image. Then you can just so you know, so it fits the character. But then you can hit freeze to reset the rotation scale, which makes it a little easier for you to actually animate with, especially with scale, which you mostly want to be at reset to 1.1 in setup mode. I'm just gonna undo this, and now I'm gonna go into animate mode and start animating. So I'm gonna go to the first frame here, and then over here in the tree I'm gonna click the green dot next to my mesh, and this sets a key on the mesh. It stores the deformation of it, and then I'm gonna scroll to frame 10 here, and I'm gonna tweak this mesh slightly. I want to make him raise his eyebrow. As you can see here, I used translate to move up these vertices, and I held down Control to select multiple edges. But there's a better way I can actually do this. So I'm just going to undo that and just select the same edges again, and this time use rotate. Then hover over the center of my rotate tool. You can see this white circle pops up. This is the pivot, and I can move this around, and I'm just going to snap it to this vertex here and rotate, and you can see the vertices that I've selected here are now actually rotating around this this origin. And I don't actually need to go and deselect that. I could go here and rotate this part around. You can see it actually uses the pivot that I set before. So I'm just going to set a key for that here. Then I'm gonna go to frame 20. I know that on the first frame I'm using my setup pose, or the way the mesh is at my setup pose as my deform. So I'm just gonna hit reset here and then set a new key. And now if I deselect the mesh here, play it back, you can see how it looks. I'm just gonna select it again so you can see how it is actually deforming the mesh here. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. We'll have more videos coming out as soon as we are done with meshes, free-form deformation, skinning, and IK pinning. Once that happens, we'll be creating new videos for every single feature of spine. So until next time, bye for now.